So you mentioned the CHAINge Conference. So the title of today's podcast is Change AI and the Future of Freight with my friend Bart De Monk. But change is spelled CHAINGE. So like supply chain, but also change. Talk about that conference.
Yeah. So as you said, Joe, it's called CHAINge. It was a rebranding this year that was done. So it's the original ASCM Connect Conference, which was the conference for the members of ASCM. For those who don't know it, it's the Association for Supply Chain Management, one of the largest associations within supply chain. And if even that name doesn't ring a bell, you might have known it previously as APIX. And if that doesn't ring a bell, you probably have heard of the SCORE model, which is kind of the basic process model for anyone that's in supply chain, anyone that has a company that kind of follows the digital or the regular SCORE model, which now there is a digital circular version of that as we've progressed with how supply chains work. And so the whole goal was to expand the ASCM Connect conference from more of a membership conference to really a industry platform where members as well as non-members can join. We just had a very successful first launch of that in Europe, in Brussels, Belgium, so my home country, just this past June, where we had incredible conversations around all the top topics that we see in supply chain. And then we have the North American version coming up in Columbus, Ohio, in the beginning of September 9th and 10th.
September 9th and 10th. Not too bad. That's beautiful weather in the Midwest that time of year. And there's football down there in Columbus, Ohio. I don't know if anyone's aware of that. Anyway, I'm a Wolverine, so it's kind
okay. Yeah,
begrudgingly. So what kind of makes, there's so many conferences now, and I always say this: you go to a conference, it's like going to a reunion. You see all your friends, you learn a lot, and you come back and you kind of sort through all your new contacts, and you go, I'm never going to miss that conference again. But then every year there's 30 conferences we could all go to. And I know they're all starting to niche. So is there something you would say that makes this change different? Well, but for the one thing that's different is it's in the Midwest. I love the idea that you can drive. There's a lot of us here in the Midwest. This is still a big manufacturing hub. But even if you're in the South, you're not too far from Columbus.
Yeah, I think that what's different, Joe, is really the approach. And what I was kind of considered as the chair role, and I did the interviews with the company, I said, well, I don't want to be a chair of just any conference. I had been a chair before. I had experience of being a chair of the Gartner Supply Chain Symposium for 4 years. And I'd done some conferences even before Gartner. But what I was really intrigued by is they kind of gave me a blank slate and said, Bart, we want you to create the agenda. And my view was always, how do we create an event that's truly an industry event by the industry for the industry, where it's not either vendor led or it's not led because we want to sell, kind of licenses or memberships or whatever, but really where we're trying to bring everyone in different roles, not just the top people, but even lower operational level people from any industry, and really bring them together to learn, to educate them, but also education through collaboration. And then obviously technology and the innovation part takes part of that as well. And so we structured the agenda where we have some really incredible speakers. One of them is Gina Raimondo, who's the previous Secretary of Commerce for the United States, who is doing one of the keynotes. So we're going to have very high-level people that are going to come and give some key presentations. But then we have a lot of panels where we have multiple people, whether it's academics, people from the industry, people related to the industry that can talk about the main topics. And again, the main topic isn't, as some conferences, AI. It's really around what's happening around tariffs, what's happening around talent in the industry, what's really happening around overall disruptions, what's happening in the world out there around other things like sustainability. So we really looked at what are some of the top things that the companies are focused on or even the employees care about, and those are the topics. And then the other things we're doing is we're having kind of more track sessions, but then very interactive sessions. We do, for example, roundtables about all these different topics where really you're not just an attendee, but you become part of the conversation. You become part of the content. I think that's what ASCM has always been known about as well, is how do we really educate, not just by giving you the information, but also about sharing our own successes and maybe sometimes our failures, and educate each other. And that's something we saw being very successful in Brussels, where we had these roundtables. We had to really pull the people away from their chairs to come back to the main sessions, because we had such vivid conversation, and everyone has opinions, but I think it's very powerful if you're in an environment where you feel comfortable sharing the information and where you can truly learn from each other, and walk away with something that says, hey, you know what? I learned something that I can actually apply. So the goal is not for everyone to walk away with a goodie bag, with a new water bottle and a t-shirt from a vendor, but really walk away with something that's very applicable, knowledge that they can use, or contacts from a network that they can use to go back to their role in their organization and say, hey, I can apply this. And by the way, CHAINge, although the main events are the North American, European events, it's a program year round where we do webinars and other things to continue education, because that's not just a one-time thing. It's a continuous thing.